Congress captured by the arms industry. Military expert, Congress has been captured by the arms industry, and we're paying the price. Pentagon budget is stunning even by the standards of a department used to getting what it wants when it wants it. On March 13, the Pentagon rolled out its proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. The results were, or at least should have been, stunning, even by the standards of a department that's used to getting what it wants when it wants it. The new Pentagon budget would come in at $842 billion. That's the highest level requested since World War II, except for the peak moment of the Afghan and Iraq wars, when the United States had nearly 200,000 troops deployed in those two countries. It's important to note that the $842 billion proposed price tag for the Pentagon next year will only be the beginning of what taxpayers will be asked to shell out in the name of defense. If you add in nuclear weapons work at the Department of Energy and small amounts of military spending spread across other agencies, you're already at a total military budget of $886 billion. And if last year is any guide, Congress will add tens of billions of dollars extra to that sum, while yet more billions will go for emergency aid to Ukraine to help it fend off Russia's brutal invasion. In short, we're talking about possible total spending of well over $950 billion on war and preparations for more of it, within striking distance, in other words, of the $1 trillion mark that hawkish officials and pundits could only dream about a few short years ago. The ultimate driver of that enormous spending spree is a seldom commented upon strategy of global military overreach, including 750 U.S. military bases scattered on every continent except Antarctica, 170,000 troops stationed overseas, and counter-terror operations in at least 85, no, that is not a typo, countries. Account offered by Brown University's Costs of War project. Worse yet, the Biden administration only seems to be preparing for more of the same. Its National Defense Strategy, released late last year, manages to find the potential for conflict virtually everywhere on the planet and calls for preparations to win a war with Russia and/or China, fight Iran and North Korea, and continue to wage a global war on terror, which, in recent times, has been redubbed countering violent extremism. Think of such a strategic view of the world as the exact opposite of the diplomacy-first approach touted by President Joe Biden and his team during his early months in office. Worse yet, it's more likely to serve as a recipe for conflict than a blueprint for peace and security. In an ideal world, Congress would carefully scrutinize that Pentagon budget request and rein in the department's overly ambitious, counterproductive plans. But the past 2 years suggest that, at least in the short term, exactly the opposite approach lies ahead. After all, lawmakers added $25 billion and $45 billion, respectively, to the Pentagon's budget requests for 2022 and 2023, mostly for special interest projects based in the states or districts of key members of Congress. And count on it, hawks on Capitol Hill will push for similar increases this year, too. The $45 billion by which Congress increased the Pentagon's budget request last year was among the highest levels on record. Add-ons included 5 extra F-35 jet fighters and a $4.7 billion boost to the shipbuilding budget. Other congressional additions included 10 HH-60W helicopters, 4 EC-37 aircraft, and 16 additional C-130J aircraft, at a cost of $1.7 billion. There were also provisions that prevented the Pentagon from retiring a wide array of older aircraft and ships, including B-1 bombers, F-22 and F-15 combat aircraft, aerial refueling planes, C-130 and C-40 transport aircraft, E-3 electronic warfare planes, HH-60W helicopters, and the relatively new but disastrous littoral combat ships, LCS, referred to by detractors as little crappy ships. The lobbying effort to prevent the Navy from retiring those problem-plagued ships is a case study of all that's wrong with the Pentagon budget process as it works its way through Congress. As the New York Times noted in a detailed analysis of the checkered history of the LCS, it was originally imagined as a multi-mission vessel capable of detecting submarines, destroying anti-ship mines, and doing battle with the kinds of small craft used by countries like Iran. Once produced, however, it proved inept at every one of those tasks, while experiencing repeated engine problems that made it hard even to deploy. Add to that the Navy's view that the LCS would be useless in a potential naval clash with China, and it was decided to retire 9 of them, even though some had only served 4 to 6 years of a potential 25-year lifetime. Contractors and public officials with a stake in the LCS, however, quickly mobilized to block the Navy from shelving the ships and ultimately saved 5 of the 9 slated for retirement. Major players included a trade association representing companies that had received contracts worth $3 billion to repair and maintain those vessels at a shipyard in Jacksonville, Florida, as well as other sites in the U.S. and overseas. The key congressional players in saving the ship were Representative John Rutherford, Republican Florida, whose district includes that Jacksonville shipyard, and Representative Rob Whitman, Republican Virginia, whose district includes a Major naval facility at Hampton Roads where maintenance and repair work on the LCS is also done. I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that, in 2022, Whitman received hundreds of thousands of dollars in arms industry campaign contributions, including substantial donations from companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and General Dynamics with a role in the LCS program. When asked if the lobbying campaign for the LCS influenced his actions, he said bluntly enough, "I can't tell you it was the predominant factor. But I can tell you it was a factor." Congress captured by the arms industry. Military expert, Congress has been captured by the arms industry, and we're paying the price. Pentagon budget is stunning even by the standards of a department used to getting what it wants when it wants it. On March 13, the Pentagon rolled out its proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. The results were, or at least should have been, stunning, even by the standards of a department